Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Counselor's Couch 101. I'm Jim Stump, and a subject that comes up periodically, doesn't seem to ever want to go away, is the subject of pornography. Most women are offended by it. Most men just don't think much of it at all. They don't think it's a big deal one way or the other, right? And so, before we get into the day to day, the average kind of use of pornography and the effect on relationships, etc., let's take a look at the background, the bigger picture. They say addiction is something you can't stop doing and it's harming your life in some significant way, right? So if you're spending a lot of time with pornography and you're ignoring your relationships, that could be a problem. If you're watching pornography too often, it's spoiling your employment. That could be a problem. If you're spending money on it that you don't have to spend, these could be problems. They could be significant, right? Those are things that really need to be dealt with in a very serious and a professional way. But what about the people who just look at things here and there, right? Now, oftentimes at the root of it, when I'm talking to folks, they say, the truth of the matter is that, when you've been in a relationship a long time, the love making seems to become routine. In other words, it's kind of dull and boring. There's no excitement to it. And so some people want to look at pornography in order to increase the excitement of their lovemaking and their physical relationship. Um, I'm really wondering, what do you folks think about, particularly the ladies? What do you think of that? If it's being used for that purpose, is that a good enough reason to use it? And if it's only used for that purpose, would that be acceptable to you? Or do you have some sort of an objection to it, right? Another thing is a lot of people have a moral objection to pornography, and that can be very significant depending on your philosophical beliefs, whether or not you believe in a particular religion or a philosophy very strongly. You can have a moral objection to pornography. Me, I kind of think of it this way. Look, if your partner doesn't like it and you want the relationship to be good, don't watch it. Just leave it aside. It's not that important, not to me anyway. If it offends her or him or whatever, then stop. The relationship is more important than that, right? But I want to know what you think of it overall. Can there be any good reason for someone to look at pornography that doesn't involve improving the relationship, right? I got a twist for you. How about this one? Guy comes in. He's going through a divorce, breaking up with his wife. He's got two young boys, 8 years old and 5 years old. Now, the court says that they have to share the so-called custody. In other words, the boys stay with the mother most of the time, but on certain occasions, certain lengths of time, they stay with the father, the guy I'm talking to, right? Father of the boy goes over to his ex's home and he is going to pick up the boys. He comes in. The two boys, 8 years old and 5 years old, are sitting in the living room. They're sitting in the living room watching a triple X pornography movie. Now, the guy gets extremely upset. Now, you can imagine what might have gone on in that relationship to split them apart, differences in philosophy and etc., right? You can just imagine it with that going on. But anyway, he complains to his ex. He says, "What's up with this? You're putting them down in front of this triple X pornography movie." And he just, the husband, ex-husband, just happened to come in when they were in an extremely um, 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 uh, promiscuous situation, right? There are lots of people going at it in this scene right there. And he's completely offended by it. And he's thinking to himself, well, why would you put boys like that, this age, in front of it? The wife is saying they've got to learn about it sometime. It's life. It's natural. It's what people do. They have to learn about it sometime. And I'm thinking, as a counselor, I'm saying, okay, this 8-year-old boy watching pornography for 2 or 3 years, at 10 or 11, he starts looking for someone to try some of this stuff out with. Who does he go to? Does he go to his sister? Does he go to the girl down the hall? Does he go to his cousin? Where does he go with this stuff to experiment with it? That's what I'm wondering. If you think I'm wrong, please let me know. I want to hear what you think about all this stuff. I want to be able to gain from your experience and your thinking and ideas about it. So please share. What do you think of these sorts of things? pornography, is it a bad thing? And oftentimes I ask ladies, well, what do you have against it? Not hurting anybody. He's not running around. He's not spending money on it. He's not having affairs. So what is the issue? Oftentimes women tell me they feel degraded. They feel like they're less than if their husband or their significant other has to be looking at pornography. Some ladies, if you sort of like convince them to share what they're really feeling, sometimes ladies feel like they're not as pretty as the females in the pornography movies, right? They're not as pretty, or maybe they're not as experienced. They're not as able to do the sorts of activities that the women in the videos are doing. Maybe because of their own beliefs and prejudices or self-esteem, they won't do it, or they don't think they can physically do it, right? So they're feeling like they're not they're not equaling up to the images that the husband or the significant other is seeing in the movies, and they're feeling less than. It attacks their self-esteem. It attacks their idea of what a pretty lady is, what kind of a woman appeals to a man, and like that. So they're afraid of it that way. They're thinking that their husband is going to be mentally off making love to someone else when they're together. Things like that. They don't like it. Is that what happens with ladies? Is that why you object to it? Because it attacks your sense of self-esteem, self-worth? Does it decrease the way you think of yourself and your ability to love? I've said this before, I'll say it again. I don't think being in love and being close to someone has anything to do with physical sex. It has to do, as far as I'm concerned, with an emotional connection to someone. That's what it's all about, and that's where the beauty and the joy and the wonder of it all takes place, when you are so connected to someone that you just want to be that person. You want the two of you to be one person, right? You ever heard of that expression, the two become one? I think that's what it refers to. At least I hope so. Folks that go off and seem to get their education, particularly young males, teens, and so forth, they get their education from pornography. They don't know that. And they're likely to go out seeking physical pleasure, and they will find it to be a certain level of pleasure, but they won't know what a truly significant connection with another human being is. And oftentimes they may not learn it because they're thinking that what the physicalness of the whole thing is what it's all about. They miss the greater point. They miss the idea of connecting with someone. So I'm curious, folks, particularly ladies, because we learn a lot from ladies. And what do you think? And besides that, if a lady came home and found her teenage son watching pornography, what would she think of that? Would she think, okay, that's age-appropriate development? Or would she go in there and try to embarrass and shame him? And if you shame your son, your 16, 17, 18-year-old son, if you shame him about sex, is that going to affect his future relationships and possibility to have a closer relationship with people? Is it going to affect him emotionally? Things to think about. This really is a vast question. And I ask folks all the time their opinions, their thoughts, and reactions to all of this, because it all comes down to, as it always does, it comes down to the individual. And in this case, oftentimes it comes down to the individuals, both people in the relationship. And I think if it becomes an issue in your relationship, the idea is to sit down and talk about it, express and share what you feel about it, and ask the other person's thoughts and feelings about it, right? Come to some agreement somewhere. Otherwise, it's just going to be another one of those wedges that shove couples apart, and that's not a good thing at all. So, gentlemen, if you want a good relationship and your wife doesn't like pornography, get rid of it, toss it. Ladies, if you want to be closer to your husband and lovemaking has become boring and routine, how are you going to fix that? Discuss it. Sometimes, I know this sounds horrible, but every once in a while, a couple will say, yeah, we'll watch a little bit of pornography, we'll get in the mood, we'll both get in the mood, and then they're able to engage in intimacy, right? If it works in that way, is it okay, or is it always bad? Is it always a sin? I'm just curious, folks. I really want to know what you're thinking. So, I want to thank you for stopping by. I hope you'll participate. Please leave your comments below or send me an email if you want to write a longer missive. The email address, of course, is counselorscouch101@mail.com. counselorscouch101@mail.com. The question today is pornography. What do we think about it? What's so bad about pornography? What's the big deal? Let me know what you think. Thank you for stopping by. I look forward to talking with you next time.